Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Andrew Robinson and I am a recovering audiophile, and I would like to welcome you all to my channel. I get a lot of requests in the comments about what it is that I use to demo all of the AV gear that I review on this channel. I don't listen to a lot of the quote-unquote traditional audiophile music, and I don't do this for a number of reasons, most of which are 20 years of going to hi-fi shows. I've heard it. So I don't want to bring the hi-fi show home. Secondly, I try and listen to music that I think you, the viewer, might actually have a stone's throw in hell chance of recognizing or knowing or understanding, or maybe having heard it yourself. Because it really doesn't do anyone any good if I reference some really obscure symphonic piece that you've never heard of and may even have a difficult time tracking down. Whereas if I say, I use No Doubt's Hella Good to evaluate dynamics, especially in that opening 60 seconds of that song, we've all heard Hella Good. And if I start to describe it and you go, yeah, that's what it sounds like in my home, congratulations, you have a great sounding system. And if you're like, oh, I don't get that impression at all, well, maybe there's something to look into. Other thing is that I use this list and I use a lot of these tracks regularly, although I don't use only these tracks, but these are the regular tracks that I use, and I use them because I own them on every conceivable format. So I have multiple ways of comparing it across multiple types of devices. Those are all of the caveats to this list. So, all right, enough fine print, let's get into it. The first track that I am guaranteed to use is Moby's Ever Loving, which is off the album Play. I listen to it for a variety of reasons. One, it is delicate but also dynamic. It has great lateral movement across the soundstage, and the right speakers, the right electronics will pull out the nuances in this particular track and show it for what it really is, which is a very, very delicate balance. In the opening, when Moby is playing the solo guitar, which is always kind of relegated to the left speaker. Don't be afraid if you put this track on and you're like, oh my God, I only hear something out of the left speaker. That's good. That is exactly what you should be hearing. But you should also be hearing kind of a soulful humming that goes over that guitar. If that's not very pronounced, you don't have a particularly resolving or resolute loudspeaker, or your electronics aren't quite as good as the best out there. If you can make it out, you hear it, but it's not like, oh my God, there it is, then that's where you can start to see the difference between good enough and great products. The soundstage should be very vast, and there are piano notes that should trickle from right to left, left to right in the back of the soundstage, and they should be very airy, like ethereal even, but still possess that little bit of sparkle or twinkle. And again, if that is really kind of fuzzy or too far back, then again, your tweeter may be rolling off quite a bit, and it might be something you want to look into. And then specifically at 2:10, 2 minutes and 10 seconds into Ever Loving, the dynamics on that passage should be explosive. Even if you're listening at high volumes, you should have the headroom, or your speakers should be able to push it even further. So even if you're at spirited listening levels, you should be like, yeah, and then it goes boom, very, very bombastic, and it should have a little bit of heft and hit you. The next up, this is again another track that I am guaranteed to use, and that is Alanis Morissette's Princess Familiar off the MTV Unplugged album. This one is all about space. You know, when people like myself like to describe, oh, I felt like I could feel the room and I was there with the artist. This is the track to experience that kind of experience with. From the opening, you can literally hear the air. Before Alanis starts singing, before the music starts, there's about a 2 to 3 second, just you hear the air in the room, the people in the round breathing. And if you don't hear that, or if it doesn't feel like it is you are sitting amongst a three-dimensional space with them, then your loudspeakers may lack a certain amount of dispersion. Your soundstage may not be quite up to snuff, or your electronics just aren't that resolving. but you should definitely feel the cacophony of space before anything is even played. That is one of the things that I listen for. And so listen for the subtleties and the nuances and detail in Alanis's voice. Specifically, believe it or not, you're gonna hear like the saliva build up in her mouth. It's gross, but also quite kind of cool. And then at around 2 minutes and 53 seconds, there is a crescendo that then immediately breaks. And those dynamics, it should be explosive, and then you should literally hear and feel the air seep out of the room. And those are some of the things that I listen for, and that's why this track is on my list. The next track is Daft Punk and The Weeknd's I Feel It Coming, and this is just bass. This is all about a test of how low will your speaker go. But the thing is the bass in this track, I think, gets a bad reputation because maybe a lot of people play it in their cars and they're thinking it's all rumbly. It's not. This bass is very fluid and you should feel it and hear it move. There should be no rumbling. There should be no shaking. It should be very methodical, long, drawn-out synthesizer bass notes that move. You know, think of it more like low chords than a thud, thud, thud. And if you hear that, if you sense that, if you feel that, your system's doing something right. Another track that I use is Michael Jackson's Who Is It off the album Dangerous. Again, this is all about dynamics, okay? First of all, the rim hit, the snare hit, I understand they are artificially enhanced, but there is a snare drum rim hit throughout this song. It should almost be violent. Like you can hear the fibers of the wood kind of flexing or splintering when that snare hits. And the subsequent cymbals that kind of radiate around the timing of that hit should also be equally sharp and clear with no sibilance. That they shouldn't sound tizzy. They should be crystal, sparkly. And so that immediate crack, crack, crack with the kind of that sparkle thing, you should, if your speaker is resolute and resolving and you have a tweeter that has it to give, this should be borderline violent, but not fatiguing at high levels. This should possess all of the snap and attack, but not be fatiguing. Shouldn't hurt you right here. Another thing about this track is also the dynamics in general. When the chorus kicks in, that's ding, 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 you know, that should hit you. That should grab you. And then, of course, Michael Jackson, it's bass. This is another great bass track. So, Michael Jackson's Who Is It from Dangerous. This next one isn't so much a nuanced monster. It's just a track that I like. It should be big. Of course, I'm talking about Church's Warning Call. This is a single, so you're going to have to specifically maybe look this one up. But it's from the band Church's. It's called Warning Call. And this one should just, the soundstage should just be big. It should go way back and totally obliterate the side boundaries of your loudspeakers. If everything with this track is happening between your speakers lack dispersion. I'm not really going to go into any more detail than that, other than because this song is not one that you get hung up too much on the details. It's just about scale. That, and it should be fun. This is a banger. This is one that I bob my head to, and if a speaker doesn't get me doing this to this song, forget it. The next track on my list is Dave Matthews Band's Dancing Nancy's from the album Under the Table and Dreaming. Again, this is about the drum kit. It's about dynamics, it's about scale, and it's about lifelike presentation. The drum solo or drum introduction during the first 40 seconds of this song, the drum kit needs to feel like it's in the room. No, full stop. If it feels recreated or if it feels this big, then your speakers can't do scale or are not as good at doing scale and are not as good at reproducing transients and that kind of dynamics. Because when the kick drum goes, you should hear and kind of sense and feel the flexing of the skins. You should feel the mallet, the weight of that mallet hit the skin on that kick drum. And subsequently, when the rest of the fill is played, you should sense the layout of that drum kit. And like I said, it needs to feel in the room and lifelike in its scale and size. Next on my list is Rage Against the Machine's Take the Power Back. This song really shouldn't need any introduction. This song I was introduced to while I worked at Emotivo, because this is the song we use more often than not, besides Steely Dan, but we're not going to use Steely Dan. We use this to evaluate not only their products, but competitors' products, because this is all about low mid-bass, grunt, detail, and speed. And of course, I am talking about the bass guitar. It needs to be dynamic. It needs to be forceful. It needs to have in-room presence, and you should hear that slap. You should again sense the strings on the bass kind of vibrating. That you really should have that feel like it's in the room. And then when the song really kicks off and takes off, everybody in the band should occupy a clear space in a three-dimensional soundstage that occurs largely between your speakers. This isn't a track that extends too far, but it does go way back. And so you should have like a diamond configuration to the soundstage as far as the performers during that particular track. But vocals should be razor sharp, crystal clear, and in the center, in your face. And that bass guitar, man, if it feels mushy and there's not that snap on the strings, then something in your system is not up to snuff in giving you what it is that you should be hearing. This is all about subtlety, nuance, and movement. Of course, that means I'm talking about Tubular Bells 3 in the opening 2 tracks. You're going to want, this is all about dynamics, so you're going to want to set your volume at something that is pleasing at high levels, but understand that these 2 tracks roll together and they start very softly. But even at their softest, you should be able to make out everything. Absolutely everything. And really listen for the lateral movement of the high frequencies from left to right, right to left. And at certain points, it should extend well beyond the side boundaries of your speakers and almost come to a wraparound type sensation. From 2 speakers, you should have a borderline 3-dimensional or surround sound performance with these 2 tracks from only 2 speakers. And everything should sound pristine. No sibilance, no high frequency harshness. Dynamics, again, need to go from soft to loud to soft. It's a very natural sound and a very complex passage, but if your speakers are up to snuff, these 2 opening tracks should transport you to a very, very ethereal kind of place. And when done right, it's just magical. This song can sound one of 2 ways, in my humble opinion. It can sound like a bombastic, in-your-face, all systems go rock track, in which case there's not a lot of delineation, there's just volume. And the vocals are forward of that wall of volume, but nevertheless, it's more of just this kind of endless, grand push of sound. Or, when done right, and through a system of a high caliber, the wall is still present in the sense that there's this huge sense of scale, but everything kind of pulls apart. All of the instruments, all of the sound very much pull apart and occupy very distinct spaces in a 3-dimensional kind of diamond shape, again, kind of between your speakers, maybe just a little bit outside, with the vocals, again, dead center. And when this happens, the song, in my experience, has this sense where it almost feels like it slows down. As you can hear further into it, as your system resolves this track, it actually kind of feels like it slows down. So if you listen to this particular track, say on a Bluetooth speaker or a pair of Bluetooth speakers that are of not any considerable note, and then immediately listen to this track through your existing 2-channel system, and you notice, oh, Wallace sound, fun track, bombastic, fun rock track, but you can almost, I don't want to say you can hear like a metronome or anything like that, but it definitely feels like two different songs. And that is what I listen for when I use this track. Obviously, I listen for all of the individual instruments and nuances and things like that. But if that sense of slowdown is there, then your system is extremely, extremely resolving. But the last one is REM's Find the River. And this one, kind of like the Alanis Morissette song earlier in this video, this one is all about mid-range clarity, inflection, detail, and tone. Michael Stipe's voice is iconic, to say the least. It is a voice that needs no introduction, but it is also a voice. His vocals can at times be incredibly hard to discern. They can be incredibly mushy. Sorry, Michael, but sometimes he doesn't enunciate all that well. Well, with this particular track, or with any REM song that I listen to, but this one in particular, because I do have it in high res, he should be very intelligible. You should be able to clearly and distinctly understand every word of his lyrics. And not only should be able to understand them and make them out, there's very distinct phrasing that then comes into play. And that's really what I use this track to listen for, is the male mid-range vocal quality. There are other things about this particular track that are good to listen to, but for me, this is a track that I put on to test a loudspeaker or system's mid-range clarity as it relates to the male vocals. Because Michael Stipe's voice is deep. It's not quite, I think, as deep as mine, at least his singing voice isn't. But it's not Alanis Morissette, where she can be a little bit more mid-rangey falsetto. He's a little bit more baritone tenor. And so between those two songs, I get a real sense of a loudspeaker or a piece of electronics mid-range acuity. And of course, like I said, we listen to a lot of stuff. Christy has her picks. She's a big Rage Against the Machine. She also does Beastie Boys a lot to evaluate stuff. She uses Pink Floyd, of all things. I'm not the world's biggest Pink Floyd fan, but she will put on Dark Side of the Moon every single time a new speaker comes into this house, and she will commandeer the system for 15, 20 minutes or more and listen to a couple of songs off Dark Side of the Moon and come to her own conclusions. And so the point is that there's no hard and fast rules about what type of music you can listen to evaluate any given product or loudspeaker. I just use these tracks more often than not because A, I'm intimately familiar with them. I have a multi-year history. I've listened to probably hundreds of systems using these tracks. And in some instances, I've even been fortunate enough to talk to the artists who recorded them, so I kind of get the chance to know what it is that they were going for. So that's it. That's this video. And again, I'm sorry I couldn't play the tracks for you. I'm not interested in getting copyright flagged. I'm not interested in having this video demonetized. So you're going to have to look up these tracks on your own, but I will link to them in the description below and send you on your way with the best possible foot forward so that you can hear these for yourself. But it's not always about what I listen to or what I want. I want to know what you guys listen to. I want to know what you rock in your system when deciding if a product is good or bad for you. So let's get a bunch of lists going again, guys. Let's see what it is that comprises your most demoed tracks for hi-fi listening and evaluation. Let me know, sound off in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please do like and subscribe. So many new people are coming to this channel each and every day. And I gotta say, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me and Christy, to be honest with you. And so welcome. And if you like this content, please do like and subscribe, ring the bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. And again, if you don't like staring at my face or you don't like the way I do things, go ahead and hit that thumbs down button. I love you all the same. I do. I really do. But anyway, I'm out of here, guys. I got a little bit of a later start this morning, so got to go make some breakfast, walk the dog, things like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. And until next time, we'll see you on the next video. Bye. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Andrew Robinson, and I am a recovering alcoholic, which is not true. And to the person who left a comment saying that I should go back to drinking. It wasn't drinking that I had an issue with. It was prescription drugs. Get it right. But you shouldn't do either. Welcome. Welcome because we publish new...